Hey folks, how we doing? Oh, let me put that to the correct thing and move this over there. Perfect, okay. How we doing today? I just wanted to, it's been a while since I've streamed. Hey Alec, what's up, brother? Been a while since I streamed. I want to be streaming multiple times a week because I kind of want to do streaming full time. So when I say kind of want to, I really want to stream full time. Hyped for the pre-release. Hope I can pull a mommy. Yeah, dude, she looks busted, and she looks like a lot of fun to play in limited, and also a lot of fun to play in. She might actually be the commander I pick for my stacks mono white, but anyway, like I was saying, I wanted to stream more often and more frequently. So Sundays, I'm just kind of pick the days that I'm not streaming, like a show. So like every other Sunday is a show I have, every other Thursday is a show I have. I'm just going to be streaming on those days. Probably Mondays and Tuesdays. Mondays after Writer's Block is finished tomorrow. And yeah, I'll probably have Omni on for Monday since we're talking about building a game based upon the setting that we've been developing. So yeah. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the set review. I'm going to start by reviewing the like actual rares and mythic rares this time rather than going through all the draft chaff. I will vaguely touch on the draft stuff, but or like the commons and like unnotable cards, but we'll see. Anyway, sit back. If you like the sound of my voice, I appreciate it. Remember to give me a hydrate check, because I'll probably forget. I appreciate that. And yeah, we'll just talk about some magic cards. So, I think I have these set to... yeah, rarity. Okay, so, and they're also in alphabetical order in that regard. Okay, so the first card we're looking at here is All Will Be One, namesake card. I saw somebody, I don't remember who this was, sorry, but I saw them post a meme. It's just like, they said the name of the set. So this card is a 3 and 2 red for an enchantment. We like big red enchantments. Your voice is like red velvet, dude. Much love, man. Thank you. I like talking, so I'm glad folks like my voice. Whenever you put one or more counters on a permanent or a player, All Will Be One deals that much damage to target opponent, creature and opponent controls, or a planeswalker and opponent. So, deals it to a an opponent, a creature, or a planeswalker. So what's really weird about this, is the way that it's worded. Because a creature, an opponent, and a planeswalker... only you could say rough, right? Shut up. The thing is, it's worded in a way that says target opponent, creature and opponent controls, or planeswalker. So it's implying that there's going to be something that this can't target, rather than it should just say any target, right? So that new battle, which we're going to see the next card, I believe, that new battle card type, I'm thinking that might be something you can deal damage to if this is going to be the case. But that being said, 5 mana for an enchantment that says whenever you put counters on a permanent or player in a set that has proliferate. I mean, if you have a really good board full of oil counters and stuff like that, or planeswalkers even, if you're going to play like, I mean, it looks more and more like red-white or like Jeskai or some sort of like red-white planeswalkers, maybe blue. I'm probably going to have blue in it because of the card we're going to talk about. This seems like one of those cards that's going to be really, really strong or really, really bad. Like, if you drop this card on a board full of things and then proliferate, and then you deal, you know, it says one or more counters on a permanent or player. Also, poison counters count for this too. I might squeeze this in my Garrison Starn commander. I mean, it's a really good card. If you proliferate at all, and if you have red, this card's really great. It's not only like really good in commander, but I think this actually is gonna be a good card in maybe in standard. I could see it. I could see like a proliferate related deck in standard coming around because of this card. It's a little bit expensive, but I mean, red has the tools to be able to deal with the early game in order to get into the late game. So, and we've seen that we've seen that Grixis mid-range is doing really well, so I don't see why this card couldn't be like a top end and then pretty much just a finisher. I mean, it seems really strong. You just play some more planeswalkers, or just... And if you think about it, it says whenever you put one or more counters on a permanent or player, I believe playing a planeswalker puts counters on it. correct me if I'm wrong, but like you say, we'll have planeswalkers like Soren Markov and Liliana of the Veil who start with 3, and I believe Soren starts with 4 loyalty. So when those enter the battlefield, they deal damage, unless I'm mistaken, because I believe that's putting counters on something. I could be wrong, but I mean, if the effect triggers, if planeswalkers get double the counters on like Doubling Season and Deep Glow Skate, I don't. Well, not Deep Glow Skate, but like Doubling Season's a good example. Liliana, you mean my wife? Yeah. Yeah. So, like, this card, I think, I haven't seen what other people have said about this, but I guarantee people are sleeping on it. No pun on the Phyrexian sleeper thing, but I think this card is really, really good. Like, 5 mana, next turn, you play a Planeswalker. I mean, it might be a card that is a 5 mana do nothing when it hits the field, but I'm not so sure. I mean, there are cards that are like deceptively bad. This card, I think, is really good. It's an enchantment, so it's not the easiest thing in the world to remove. I doubt anybody's gonna like go out of their way to run enchantment removal, because we haven't really seen any like really potent enchantments lately. There's Destroy Evil, but it's kind of a stretch. You don't see Destroy Evil that much in Standard. In Commander, this card's awesome. I mean, literally, just play a Planeswalker. I mean, you could play Daretti Scrap Savant and just play that. You know, like, this card's good. I'm just going to say that. This card is very good, because on average, when you play a Planeswalker, this is going to do anywhere between, like, 3 and 5 damage when a Planeswalker hits the field. I think it's just a good card. Also, here's the alternative art for it, because this set is drowning in alternative arts. I don't think it'll see much Standard play. I don't either, but I think it'll be one of those cards that'll just, you know, be like a really niche, like fun, casual combo kind of thing to go off. I don't think it's going to be good in Limited either for that exact reason, Raf. But I think it has a home somewhere. It needs to find a home. It's a really cool card. It reminds me of something that would have been printed back in the day alongside like Warstorm Surge. 100% Commander. Yes, 100% Commander. Okay. Here's a card I'm not really big on, but kind of like Tarmogoyf back in the day. Tarmogoyf, excuse me. It introduces something here. So this is Atraxa. We've seen another Atraxa. This is a 7. We've seen Atraxa before as a 4 mana 4/4 that has all these keywords and does proliferate stuff. But this is a 7 mana 7/7. It is 3 green, white, blue, black for a 7/7 flying vigilance, death touch, and lifelinker. It's a good card. I mean, just on that, it's a 7 mana 7/7 that does all those things. It's good enough. That being said, the mana cost is gonna. I don't think it'll be that bad. With treasures being in Standard, no problem. But when Atraxa enters the battlefield, reveal the top 10 cards of your library. For each card type, you may put a card of that type from among those revealed cards into your hand, and you put the rest onto the bottom of your library in a random order. So this is kind of like, we saw this similar effect with Niv Mizzet Reborn, but this one specifically looks for card types, and the card types listed here are Artifact, Battle, which that's one we haven't seen yet, and we're not going to see in this set. I think the next set we will see, March of the Machines, we will see Battle cards. Like I said, this is like Tarmogoyf, where it introduced... Tarmogoyf was like a red carpet for Planeswalkers as a creature type. But it's Artifact, Battle, Creature, Enchantment, Instant, Land, Planeswalker, and Sorcery. All of those are card types. So, yeah, this card's just... It's just good. I mean, it's boring how good it is. It's just 7 mana, 7/7, drop it, get all these keywords, grab a crap load of cards. I mean... The only thing I gotta say is, like, falling back on the Commander thing. This is gonna be a good card in Commander, and people are gonna like to have this as a 4 mana option for a general. I can't blame them. It's just kind of... I don't know what I expected from Atraxa, but it wasn't something like this. I figured it would do something proliferate-related, counters, stuff like that. But this is literally just a 7 mana, draw a crap load of cards. Like I said, it's like Niv Mizzet Reborn. It's like literally drop it, grab a bunch of cards from the top 10 of your deck. It's just good. That's about it. Is it going to see play in Standard? It seems pretty slow, so probably not. Everywhere else, Commander, Limited. I don't see this being played in Limited. Commander's the only set I can see this, or the only game mode I could see this being legal in, to be quite honest. Or, like, not legal, but, like, good in. I don't know why you would play this in Standard, because it just seems like by the time you get 7 mana to drop this thing, you're already kind of behind. So, not a fan, honestly. Just kind of boring, and I feel like that's a general consensus that I share with a lot of people. Is like this card's just kind of boring. The alternative arts and the main art by Martin Nail, I mean, great art. Thomas Baxa, Anato Finstark. I mean, I don't know why that card shows up twice, but whatever. Anyway. Capricious? Correct me if I'm wrong. Capricious Hellraiser. It's 3 and 3 red for a 4/4 Phyrexian Dragon, and this costs 3 less if you have 9 or more cards in your graveyard. And it is a flyer, and when it enters the battlefield, you exile 3 cards at random from your graveyard, and you choose a non-creature, non-land card from among them and copy it, and you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So, the question is this card good? 9 cards or more in your graveyard in a red deck. I mean, we've seen some cards that we wouldn't expect to work really well before, but like 9 cards, that's 2 more than Threshold, and that's kind of a stretch. I mean, I could see this being a late game slammer, but the whole idea is that you want to play it for 3 mana, you want to play it as a 4/4, but completely ignoring the 3 less to cast, what if this card was just a 6 mana 4/4 with flying that exiled 3 cards at random from your graveyard? Let's say you have your graveyard set up in a way that you would want to have it set up. Like you have a bunch of cards that you would, like burn spells, blah, blah, blah. Is this good? It doesn't fit into burn. It really doesn't. It's a 6 mana card. Burn does not like expensive mana cost. Burn doesn't like anything above 4 mana for the most part. Or even anything that is 4 mana. So, this card, I don't know. It's just not good enough. I always like seeing new dragons and stuff like that, but it's non-creature, non-land specifically. So, the cards are exiled at random anyway. So if you have a land in your graveyard and you accidentally, if you hit a bunch of lands, you're not getting anything out of this card. If you hit like a bolt type effect, like a shock or a lightning strike or something of that ilk. I'm just not seeing it because like that I think it was called Thundering Raiju. This card just seems like a worse version of Thundering Raiju, or a worse version of what's it called? Is it called Intrepid Adversary, the red one? This card just seems like a worse version of both of those cards. So, is it gonna see play? Somebody will try it. Is it good? No. Good art though. I mean, I like the art on these cards. Phyrexian Dragon's cool. Okay, now we're going to talk about the Dominus. This is our first Dominus. This is Drivnod. Maybe if you could exile 3 targeted cards. Yeah, even if it was targeted, it would still just kind of be... Drivnod, he is 3 and 2 black for an 8/3 legendary creature Phyrexian Horror. I've heard these referred to as gods by a lot of the artists that made them, but they're not technically gods. I'm interested to see why they didn't just put God on there, honestly, to be quite... I mean, I don't see why it would have been a big deal to be Phyrexian God or Phyrexian Horror God, but I understand. I kind of understand what they were trying to do. So, he says, if a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So, we've seen this effect on Teysa Karlov. Dying things, triggering twice, seems good. 5 mana, 8/3. The closest creature we have to a 5 mana 8/3 is Yargle, I think. I think Yargle might be 4 mana. No, Yargle's 5 mana. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Yargle's 5 mana. And then you can pay 2 Phyrexian black mana, which was either 1 black or 2 life, to exile 3 creatures from your graveyard, put an indestructible counter on Drivnod. So, here's my thing. This card is good. Genuinely good card. Not in standard. It's a card that's just too expensive. It doesn't fit into black. Black already has a lot of really great pieces to work with, and there isn't really like a dying trigger ability that's like really good. I mean, the only card I can really think of is that what's the name of that card? It's like Opportunistic Scavenger or something like that. It's a 3 mana 1/3. It says whenever a creature dies, draw a card that's only it triggers once per turn. This can technically do that twice, but like that's just cute. You know what I mean? That's not something you actually want to be doing in standard. You want to be being really aggressive. Also, I mean this is a great like extra card to put in like your Teysa Karlov deck, right? But the secondary effect of this being 2 Phyrexian mana to exile 3 creatures from your graveyard, that kind of seals the deal that this is not going to see any play in Standard, because there is so much incidental graveyard hate in Standard right now that you're never going to be able to exile 3 creature cards from your own graveyard. There are so many cards that just get rid of things. I mean, we're talking about the Graveyard Trespasser. You know, there's that shadow that came out with the previous set. It's the one that lets you buff itself for a generic. I mean, that thing sends things to exile. There's white cards that exile stuff now. It's just I think it's called Sun Gold Sentinel, the 2 mana 3/2. That's like whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard. There's just so much incidental graveyard hate in Standard that are just on good playable cards. So nobody's ever gonna have to run something just to take care of something like this. It's just gonna happen. So you're never gonna get that trigger off, essentially. But if it was from any graveyard, even still. But this card is not playable in Standard. Yeah, in Commander, absolutely. This card's just a throw it in a Teysa Karlov to have a redundant effect. Redundancy is key in Commander, I have always said. Cool art though. I really like the design of this creature. This big, like, hulking skeletal type thing with multiple arms. Honestly, it kind of reminds me, the way how long its spine is, it kind of reminds me of Jin-Gitaxias, but it's still really cool. I like it a lot. It looks like something you'd see in like a Soulsborne game as a boss. I really like this art too. It's a little weird, but I actually kind of like avant-garde stuff in Magic. Okay, Elesh Norn. This is the one that a lot of people are talking about and being like, okay, is this card actually going to be like relevant and Standard? My answer is maybe. I mean, a lot of the... Okay, so let's just read the effect of the card before we start diving in. 4 and a white for a legendary creature, Phyrexian Praetor, and she has Vigilance. If a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, it triggers an additional time. So it's Panharmonicon, a Panharmonicon. And permanents entering the battlefield doesn't cause abilities of permanents your opponent's control to trigger. So you gotta wonder how many effects are currently in Standard that have ETB related things. Well, we're looking at something like Graveyard Trespasser, who like stops the initial exile, which that's just kind of cute. I'm trying to think of some other things that do things when they enter the battlefield. In Standard specifically, there are creatures. I'm sure there's plenty of examples, and there's also just permanents. So sagas don't trigger. We don't really have a lot of sagas in Standard right now, but they don't trigger. There's a lot of white cards that say do something when it enters the battlefield. They don't trigger. Brutal Cathar doesn't trigger. Leyline Bond doesn't trigger, but I mean, by the time you get 5 mana, it's like we should look at the upside of this card, the personal upside. So like you get to double your stuff. So you're gonna get to a point in the game in Standard where you're dropping Elesh Norn, and then the turn after that you're dropping something like a Brutal Cathar and taking 2 of your opponent's creatures, or you're doing something cute like that. The question is, are you actually doing? I mean, you could play Elesh Norn in a Leyline Binding deck and drop it. I mean, I think this card's good. I think it's gonna have to be put in a deck that doesn't already exist, if that makes any sense. I mean, I don't see it like, I don't know if it's a build around card. It sort of is, sort of not. But even so, I'm not sure. I don't know. I think it's a good card, and like in Commander, when you're getting this card down, you usually have effects to follow it up, or you have the ramp to get to it. In Standard, we'll have to wait and see, but a 5 mana 4/7 Vigilance is nothing to sneeze at. But there's a lot of removal in Standard. There's a lot of really good cheap removal in Standard, like Infernal Grasp and Go for the Throat. Destroy Evil actually gets rid of this. So the question is this worth it? And is your opponent going to hold up removal specifically for this card? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Plenty of alternative arts for her, too. There's like 7, I think. Oh, thanks for the gift sub. That actually startled me. Thank you, Sil. Appreciate you, man. Give sub to Mr. Rav. Hell yeah. Thanks, boss. I appreciate you. Elish Norn. Yeah, see, I mean, look at how many alternatives there are. There's the Junji Ito. There's the Richard Witters one. Okay, fun story about the Richard Witters one, and we'll get back to it. Richard wasn't actually aware of the fact that they were using his art on cards, which the art that he did, the conceptual art for the Praetors, he did those for Wizards years ago, and they technically own his work. So they didn't do anything shady by using his art. They credited him and all that stuff. And I was like, hey, I'm really excited to see Richard Witter's art on some cards, because I love Witter's style. It's just so pencil-y, sketchy, and it's just like, it's really expressive. I love it. It connects with me. And he's just like, oh really? I didn't know they were putting my art on cards. I'm like, no way, I'm the one to tell you that they did that. Like, that blew my mind. I was like, what the hell? But, I was really excited to see his art on cards, like I said. Oh my god, how many different types of art does Elesh Norn have? Okay. Good lord. Good lord. Okay. On to Ikarumoon Gauntlet. Let's see here. So, Ikarumoon Gauntlet is a card that just says Planeswalkers. I think this is one of the only cards you've ever seen that actually gives Planeswalkers an ability. I mean, the only one I can think of is Nicol Bolas, that steals other Planeswalkers' abilities. Planeswalkers you control have for 0 loyalty, proliferate, and -12 take an extra turn after this one. And it says, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, choose a counter on a target permanent, and you put an additional counter of that kind on that permanent. So this isn't just proliferate twice, it's proliferate, and then... So, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, choose a counter, add another counter to it. So it's like a baby proliferate. It's a diet proliferate. Proliferate at home. So the thing that we want to look at with this is this going to be good in standard? With all will be one, that card, not the set name. It gets you thinking. It's like, okay, are we seeing like a blue-red sort of like proliferate matters deck? Like, are we gonna have some planeswalkers doing some fun stuff? And that really makes you think. It's like, how many planeswalkers are cheap and good and efficient to always play? And the first one that immediately comes to mind when you think about standard is Liliana of the Veil. Yeah, so Lily is one of those cards that's just like, you always want to drop Lily, and giving Lily an alternative to rather than just discarding, just having her proliferate, that could be really good. Grixis is pretty strong right now, but we might see a different kind of Grixis, I think, and like Grixis Planeswalkers, because Grixis already plays plenty of Planeswalkers, so it's a little weird. Everywhere else, yes, this card's busted. I mean, this card's gonna be nuts in Commander. Super Friends just got even more super, Ultra Friends even, and this card's just really, really good. I don't know what else there is to say about it. Giving your Planeswalkers an alternative to their +1s to literally, hey, 0 proliferate, give all of your Planeswalkers, so you could get it. You could easily get that ult off, that -12 ult off, depending on what kind of Planeswalkers you're using. It's just a really good card. And I'm looking forward to seeing it used, and I hope it gets used in standard, because I really want to see some shenanigans with that. Controversial Planeswalker, Jace, the Perfected Mind. So Jace is 2 blue and a Phyrexian blue for a 5 loyalty walker. There you go, high loyalty starting walker. But it's also completed. So if you pay the life for this walker, it enters with 2 fewer loyalty counters. So you can pay 3 and 2 life for a 3 loyalty Jace. And the +1 on Jace is up until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gets -3/-0. The -2 is target player mills 3 cards, and then if they have 20 or more cards in their graveyard, you draw 3 cards, otherwise you draw a single card. And the -X is target player mills 3 times X cards. So here's the big question. Is this card good? Yes and no. This card's good in specific decks. I think that this will actually see play in Mill, specifically in Modern, because this card just kind of does what you want. It's kind of like Ashiok in the way that it does like a really, really big Mill thing, like right off the bat. It doesn't exile things, but could you imagine dropping a Jace, even if it's just for 3, instead of paying the 4 full mana, and hitting it for the -X for all 3, 3 times 3, obviously that's 9 cards. That's still a good hit. But if you drop this for 5 mana, or for 4 mana, excuse me, paying the blue, you get a 5 loyalty walker, and then you can 3 times 5. That's 15 cards. Is that good? I think so, and it can it has a soft protection for itself. It can +1 to get a creature to -3/-0. The main thing we want to look at in Standard is this card going to make a mill deck a mill deck? We don't really have a lot of mill stuff in Standard. We have Teresian Mindbreaker and Cut Your Losses, and those cards are really not like mill cards. They're just like get rid of the top deck. It doesn't say mill a card, but it's like it literally just says pretty much put the top half of your library in your graveyard. I mean, are we gonna see a deck kind of emphasize that? If Jace gets like, you know, that Ikarim Gauntlet, the idea of like putting counters on different permanents, I could really see this card being really good. The -2 is also just icing, because like if you play a Jace in the late game and you're like getting near to finishing somebody off and they have 20 cards in their graveyard, you can draw 3 cards and refresh, especially if you're falling behind on new mill tools. I've seen a lot of people talk about this card, but they don't talk about the -2. Like the -2 is, yeah, it's a bit situational to get 3 cards off milling 20. But if you're doing the mill game correctly, you should be, by the time you're able to play Jace for 4 mana, you should have 20 cards in your opponent's graveyard. What's disappointing is that we don't have a whole lot of mill cards in Standard, but that might change. We'll have to wait and see with the next set. But you know how Magic is. They usually print cards ahead of time, and then the next few sets, they give them tools to work with those cards. So, I'm looking forward to seeing this card. I always like playing Jace, even if he is a Phyrexian minion now. But yeah, Jace is my favorite Planeswalker, so I was actually really surprised that he's not a more generic, like, slap in any deck kind of Jace. He's actually a very niche Jace. So I hope he actually starts something in Standard. I'm not sure what he'll be starting, but I'm looking forward to it. And all the alternative arts of him look really cool, too. I do think his design is a little bit conservative, but I'm curious to see what they're going to do with that. Yeah, with I think it's called Luxador, the sword. Stabbed through him. Cool. And then there's the Phyrexian one. And here's Lukka. So, or Luca, I've heard it pronounced different ways by WotC team. It seems like they don't have a consistent pronunciation, but I'm going to call him Lukka because I've always called him Lukka. Lukka, Bound to Ruin. Lukka is 2 a red, a dual Phyrexian mana, so red or green, and another green. So he's a 5 loyalty walker, but if you pay the life, he can enter with 2 fewer loyalty counters, but you can pay him for 4. So, excuse me. +1 is you add a red and a green, and you can spend this mana only to cast creature spells or activate abilities of creatures. -1 is create a 3/3 green Phyrexian beast creature token with Toxic 1. And the -4 is deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control as you activate the ability. So, interesting thing about that is it basically says, when you activate this ability, largest power among creatures you control, and guess what that means? That means that, no matter if your opponent tries to blow up the thing that you had previously controlled, it's still going to deal the damage among creatures or planeswalkers. It's just a good card. Yes, sort of. We'll have to wait and see. It's a weird one. So you can essentially pay 4 mana for kind of a Garruk Wildspeaker. It's a weird, not so good version of Garruk Wildspeaker. And was Garruk Wildspeaker a good Planeswalker card? Kinda. So 4 mana. Let's say you pay 4 mana and 2 life. You pay 4 mana and 2 life, and you can +1, and you add a red and a green. Cast creature spells. Okay, that's pretty much what red-green is usually doing. -3, which is also very similar to Garruk Wildspeaker. You create a 3/3. Hey Natasha, how you doing? And is that good? This token also has Toxic 1, which means it deals a single point of poison, or it puts a single poison counter on a player. Mixing so much paint, hell yeah! I miss the smell of mixing oil paint. It was really a lot of fun. Yeah. I don't know, it's nostalgic. But the -4, I mean, that's not what we're here for. We're here for the +1 and the -1, which is bread and butter. This card is interesting. We'll have to wait and see. I think it's a little bit too expensive for what it does, but essentially it's a 2-mana walker if you +1 it, and then you can get creatures onto the battlefield, specifically red or green. So that's why I was saying that this card, I don't think it's as good as Garruk Wildspeaker in that regard. So, and Garruk Wildspeaker is just an okay planeswalker. This dude looks like he's gonna kill you and take your girl in a creepy way. Yeah, Lucca is an idiot. He literally was just tried to bond with a Phyrexian creature and he got completed because of it. So he kind of looks like old Urtai. Not Urtai, but what's the name of that? Azuri, the elf, before he got completed. That's the kind of vibe he gives me. But yeah, it's an okay card. I don't see it seeing a lot of play in Standard. I could see it seeing some niche play in Commander. It's going to be a cheap walker, so it'll definitely be one to pick up. Hey, thanks for the resub. Much love. Thank you very much. There's also a lot of art of Lucca for some reason. Appreciate you, Natasha. Thank you. This is our next Phyrexian god. They're not actually gods. Mondrak, Glory Dominus. It's a 2 and a 2 white for a 4/4. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many tokens are created instead. So, this card's gonna be very, very expensive. Why? Well, the set isn't even out yet, and it's about $40. So, why? Because the only other effect we have like this in white is Anointed Procession, and that card's $40. And this card's pretty much just as good. It's on a stick. It's a little bit easier to remove. It's obviously a lot easier to remove because it's a creature, but you can pay 1 and 2 Phyrexian white mana to sacrifice 2 other creatures and/or artifacts, excuse me, and then you put an indestructible counter on Mondrak. So, is this thing going to be easy to remove then? In Standard, no, it's not going to be very easy to remove. In Commander, there's a lot of exile effects. This is a card you instantly want to slap in a token deck. Like, without a doubt, if you're making tokens, this is a card you want to throw in the deck. It is literally an Anointed Procession. Or, if you want to go old school, it is a Parallel Lives, but white shifted. It's just a good card. I mean, there's nothing more to say about this. This is going to see play in Standard, and it's going to see play pretty much everywhere else. Probably not Modern or any of those old Legacy formats. But will it see play? Without a doubt. It's already $50, like everywhere. So, and I don't think that price is bloated just because of the new set release. And I got some cool art for him too. Okay, Nahiri. What do I say about Nahiri? Okay, well, Nahiri got what she deserved, I'm just saying. So, 1, a red, a Phyrexian Boros, so like red or white or life, and another white. Grade 5 loyalty, legendary planeswalker Nahiri. +1 until your next turn. Up to 1 target creature attacks a player each combat if able. So it's kind of goaded. It's a soft goad. +1 is discard a card and then draw a card. And 0 is exile target creature or equipment card with mana value less than Nahiri's loyalty from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of it. It gains haste. Exile at the beginning of next end step. So what are we looking at here? I don't think this is a great walker. I think it's got a lot of good options. But until your next turn, up to 1 target creature attacks a player each combat if able. You don't really want your opponent's creatures attacking you. Unless in niche situations where you have a board already. That's definitely a win more effect if you want somebody's creature to It also says up to 1, so you can just +1 and not activate it, or not like choose a target. So that's good. But you're not going to be using it. The +1, discard a card, draw a card, that can be a very efficient effect, especially because it kind of already feeds into it herself, the whole idea of discarding a card, so you can exile target creature equipment card from the graveyard and make a token and gains haste. What are you hitting with that? You're hitting Adolin, which Adolin can be a finisher. I mean, and even if you drop this at with a Phyrexian cost of 3 loyalty, Adolin is... Oh, it actually says mana value less than Nahiri's loyalty. That's really trash. Wow, I didn't read that part. I hate the fact that it's worded like that. So you'd have to drop this for 4 mana, which I think you're pretty much going to have to do anyway if you want to hit something that's like 4 mana or less. I didn't realize it said less than. So that's kind of disappointing. So you're going to have to drop it. You can't just drop this on for 3 mana and get an Adolin back. You have to drop it for 4 mana, and then you can get an Adolin back. Is that worth it? Animating, giving Adolin a haste. This card is heavily dependent on whether or not you already have a board, which is like, is Boros doing really anything great in Standard? No. Does this fit? Will this make an archetype? I don't know. It's a creature, equipment, and card. It's not really... And you create a token that's a copy of an equipment card, and you still have to pay the... You can technically get cards that have Form Mirrodin on them, and swing in with haste, and you'll get to keep the token after the things dies. But we haven't really seen any really amazing cards with Form Mirrodin on them, so I think this card's just kind of mediocre all around. And an equipment deck... I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think this card's very great. The only thing that's good about it is the discard draw card. The fact that the whole bread and butter of this card, exiling creatures from your graveyard, is less than, not less than or equal to her loyalty, makes this card really bad compared to like what it could be. Is it trash? No, I don't think it's trash. I think it has a place, but is it good? No. Cool art though. Sword arms. Sword arm online. Oh boy, this one's been controversial. So, Nissa, Ascended Animist. Nissa is completed. She looks the least like she previously did compared to a lot of the other walkers. She has 4 arms. She looks bald. She kind of looks like that Alice Ilkor, I believe. So 3, 2 green, and 2 Phyrexian mana for a 7 loyalty walker, which if you pay the 2 Phyrexian mana, it's a 5 loyalty walker that enters with, so 3 loyalty, so, +1, so you put a counter on it, and you create an XX green horror, Phyrexian horror, or X is Nissa's loyalty, so even at the absolute lowest mana cost you could pay for this thing, you're still making a 4/4, that's really strong. -1 is destroy target artifact or enchantment. Really good. And -7 is until the end of your turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 for each forest you control and gain trample. Did this card single-handedly bring mono green back into the spotlight? Maybe. It's kind of a weird one. Is this a really good card in a lot of formats? Yes, absolutely. We already saw Ren and 7 doing some really good damage to Standard when it came out, but we've been seeing less and less green in Standard. It just hasn't held up very well since the last few sets. But will this card bring back green? I think so. I mean, if you're going to be doing some ramping in green, I mean, this is the card to get, because that -7 is essentially an overrun effect. And pretty much, if you have all forests, you're going to kill. I mean, it goes without saying. The -1 being able to blow up an artifact or enchantment, that's good. But the +1 is the bread and butter of this card. You want to drop this card for 5, 6, 7 mana, and you're going to be getting a creature that's +1 better than its loyalty, or starting loyalty. So at 5 mana, 4/4, it's 6 mana, let me do some math here. 6 mana, so you're paying 2, so it'd be a 6/6. And 7 mana, you're getting an 8/8. Is it good? Absolutely, this card's good. I mean, it makes tokens, and dare I say that you might want to run Mondrak alongside this card to create copies of your Phyrexian Horror tokens. So there might be a green-white token stack in Standard. Just saying. I'm a big tokens fan, so I'd love to see that. But, yeah, I think this card's really solid. I don't think there's a lot to say about it. This card's going to be really good in Commander. It's going to be a staple in Commander. This is probably going to go in a lot of green decks. I mean, to give you an idea, this card's already, like, between $12 and $20. So, is it going to see a lot of play in Standard? Maybe not. But is it going to see a lot of play in Commander and a lot of other formats? And is this going to be a really good card to get in Limited? Yes, without a doubt. But the thing is, people are like, oh, for paying life or something, blah, blah, blah. If you play this for 5 mana, you're still paying 4 life. And 4 life's kind of a hefty cost for a walker. But it can protect itself, and it protects itself well. It's very much like Wrenn and 7, like I was saying. All hail the bird token. Hell yeah. I love bird tokens, especially when I swan song my opponents. Haha. Yeah. Alright, so yeah, I mean, she's just a really good card. Kind of sad what happened to her, but this is kind of a jerk too, so. And Phyrexian Obliterator. What's the best card? What, in this set so far, or just like ever? I mean, Black Lotus. What's the best legal card? Depends what format we're talking about. Commander. I mean, there's a reason Sol Ring's in 83% of all decks, so maybe that. But the best cards ever are the ones that enable you to play other cards. Black Lotus, yep. 0 mana, tap sack it, add 3 mana of any one color to your pool. 0 mana. You can do that, sack it, yep. Print it back, and when the game quest started. There's a reason that it's like Sol Ring's the most practical. Absolutely, yeah. Phyrexian Obliterator is a card that we have seen in the past, so a lot of folks might know what it do. I mean, that's alright, that's fine. 4 black for a 5/5, Phyrexian Horror with Trample. Whenever a source deals damage to Phyrexian Obliterator, that source's controller sacrifices that many permanents. It's just a good card. We know it's going to be good. Is it going to fit right into mono black? It is competing yet again with Sheoldred, which is also a really good 4-drop. Is this card worth playing? I mean, a lot of people are running Mishra's Foundry in this meta, and it's kind of hard to say. This will be in my mono black devotion. Oh yeah, this thing is perfect for mono black devotion. It's just, yeah, Pioneer's gonna love this card. Pioneer's gonna eat this up. So, ask the question, is this going to be in Standard? Yeah, people are going to play this in Standard. They're going to drop a few copies of Sheoldred, and they're going to put this in instead. I mean, it's going to get killed by the same thing Sheoldred gets killed by. But here's the thing. Whenever it is dealt damage. So, is Sheoldred more efficient? Yes. Sheoldred's also easier to cast because it's not 4 black pips. This card's just going to be good. I mean, I don't know what to say. The people are going to put it in their mono black decks, and it's going to be good. Simple as. I mean, there's not really much to it other than that. Oh, because we've seen a Phyrexian Obliterator dominate before, and it's going to dominate again. Just a good card. So now we have the flip side, the enemy color of Phyrexian Obliterator. We have Phyrexian Vindicator. So this card is a weird one. So we have seen mono white, so I think this will see play. But let me continue. 4 white for a 5/5 flying Phyrexian Horror, so it's already good. Better than vanilla stats. If damage would be dealt to Phyrexian Vindicator, prevent that damage, and when damage is prevented this way, Phyrexian Vindicator deals that much damage to any other target. So, this thing cannot be dealt damage at all, unlike Phyrexian Obliterator, which is dealt the damage and then causes people to sacrifice permanents. This card is really weird. We haven't really seen a lot of white cards do effects like this, like a Deflecting Palm sort of effect. Deflecting Palm, like a weird soft Deflecting Palm. You know it's a McDonald Angel because of the red one. Yeah, this is what the future looks like if we keep eating McDonald's. Not sponsored, clearly. But I think this card's going to see a lot of play. I mean, I think Mono White's going to be absolutely pushed, but again, the Mishra's Foundry thing, and Mono White likes running Mishra's Foundry as a beater in the late game whenever they run out of creatures. Is this going to be easy to cast? Yes and no. Current mono white runs lower land counts. But if this card hits the table and then somebody just Infernal Grasps, go for the throats. I can probably think of a few more. Destroy Evil. Yeah, it's just not gonna work. Against red, this card's pretty much just a you might as well scoop it up kind of card. But I don't know. I've been thinking that with the cards we have in standard and the cards that we've been seeing, I genuinely think that there could be like a sort of death and taxes like stacks type deck in standard. We have Thalia, we have Phyrexian Vindicator, we have other white effects that just shut the game down. I think we could see more things like this card, like taking off, but we'll have to wait and see. This card, in my opinion, is really good. Will it see play? I don't know. I really don't. It's kind of an iffy one. I like it. I'm gonna try to play it, that's for damn sure. Sulfim, Mayhem Dominus. This is the red one. The red Phyrexian horror, quote unquote. It's 2 and 2 red for a 5/4. If a source you control would deal non-combat damage, non-combat damage to an opponent, or if permanent an opponent controls, it deals double that damage to that player or permanent instead. So non-combat damage is going to be very prominent here in this standard. I mean, we have stuff like lightning strikes, we have shocks, we have what's that called? The one red that when it deals combat damage to the face, you let you scry. Is it play with fire? I think it's play with fire. We have cards that do this, and we have plenty of effects that you could just that aren't seeing play that could be slotted in for this instead. Is 4 mana for a 5/4 too much for an aggro deck? I mean, that's kind of an iffy one. Sometimes yes, most of the time yes. Will this card see play? I think so. And the indestructible effect is 1 and 2 Phyrexian red. You can discard 2 cards and put an indestructible counter on Sulfim. The discarding the 2 cards to put an indestructible counter on this seems pretty rough. I don't think you're going to be doing that a whole lot. You're just going to be hoping this thing survives at least for a turn and then going for it. Discarding 2 cards is a really high price to pay. Now, where does this fit in standard? I don't think it does. I think it'll have to make its own sort of little slot for itself. But it says non-combat, so it makes you think there are a lot of non-combat triggers happening in standard, especially in the Rakdos colors. So if you think about it, this card seems really good. There is a deck in Commander that this instantly pops out to me. Discard 2 cards. Madness decks, you play Anjay Falconwrath. Go for it. I mean, it's a discard effect, and you get an upside out of it. Go for it. Sounds like fun, and you can discard things that actually deal damage, like a lava axe, I believe. So, like I said, go for it. I mean, it seems really cool. Standard, we'll have to wait and see. It's another one of those cards that's just like, I don't think it'll carve in new meta, but Staff of Completion. So this is the opposite of Staff of Domination. So this is 3 mana, and it has tap for pay 1 life, destroy target permanent you own. Weird. Tap, pay 2 life, add 1 mana of any one color. Tap, pay 3 life, proliferate, which they'll probably see the one we're seeing the most of. Tap, pay 4 life, draw a card, and then you can pay 5 mana to untap Staff of Completion. Is this card good? I'm sure it has a place. Not in standard. Definitely not in standard. Paying 4 life to draw a card is steep, especially after you already paid 3 mana for it. Paying 3 life to proliferate, however, that could be good. Especially if you have things that could gain you life. Paying 2 life to add a mana for a 3 mana like artifact already iffy, but to pay 1 life to destroy target permanent you own, I don't know about that. I mean, that's, I guess if you're trying to purposely destroy your own stuff, I guess that's a card for you, but I don't see this card being very good at all. Sword of Forge and Frontier. So this is the One of the last cards we need to complete the Swords Mega Cycle. We need the Dimir one, which honestly I could go the rest of my life not seeing a Dimir sword. But Sword of Fortune Frontier is 3 mana, and it gets equipped creature gets +2/+2 and have pro red and green. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn, and you may play an additional land this turn. Is this card good? Yeah, absolutely, it's good. I mean, it's just literally it gives you a mana advantage. Unless you play an additional land, it gives you 2 cards at the top of your library, situational draw, which you probably are going to play if you got this equipped, swung in. You can play a land, and there's a chance you'll be able to play the next thing you have. Does this fit in standard? I don't know. I really don't. I mean, 3 mana for an artifact is already pretty steep for an equipment, and then it doesn't really do anything unless you equip it to a creature which you have to already previously controlled to do something that turn. 5 mana for all of that. Iffy. If your opponent doesn't blow it up and it just kind of like lingers on the board, or you like get it back with Nahiri, for example, I could see it being okay. Is it amazing? I don't know. I'm sure people that like collecting the swords will definitely like to have this one in their deck. It's already pretty expensive to pick it up with pre-order, quote unquote, about a little over $20. Will it see play in Commander? Absolutely. It's a really good mana advantage card. It's no Sword of Feast and Famine, but it's definitely a card that'll give you some really like good mana advantage. But yeah, will it see play in Standard? Probably. Will it see play everywhere else? Probably. It's a sword, but swords don't keep up in Modern anymore, that's for damn sure. Especially not after Modern Horizons. Okay, so this is the blue one. This is Tekuthal, Inquiry Dominus. This is 2/2 blue for a 3/5 flyer. It's a Phyrexian Horror, legendary Phyrexian Horror. And it says, if you would proliferate, you proliferate twice instead. And we've already seen how dominant proliferate's going to be. This card's going to be like an instant fit in. That's also a 4 mana 3/5 flyer, and that's already strong enough as is. And you can pay 1 and 2 blue Phyrexian mana to remove 3 counters among other artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers you control, and put an indestructible counter on Tekuthal. How easy is it going to be to remove 3 counters from among artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers you control? Well, we have oil counters on a lot of creatures, we have loyalty counters, and we have +1/+1 counters. We have a bunch of other crap. It's going to be a lot easier than some of the other Dominus ones are. Will this card see play? Without a doubt, it'll see play. It just seems really good. Easy peasy. I mean, proliferating, something that you want to do, it'll be an instant slap in anything that wants to proliferate, or if you have anything that proliferates, period. It'll be good. This will definitely be a card that those Atraxa players will literally just remove a card from their deck to put this in. It's a good card, not much else to say about it. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Alright, we're getting to the fun stuff. So this is Tyranax Rex. I know a lot of folks probably remember Carnage Tyrant and how oppressive that card was. This is 4/3 green for an 8/8. The spell cannot be countered. It has Trample, Ward 4, and Haste. And Toxic 4. Keyword soup. So, will this card see play? Yes, Carnage Tyrant saw play, and it was just 1 mana more, and you can ramp into this too. I mean, there's no saying that there isn't going to be some sort of like mono green ramp deck. There's going to be more ramp creatures we're going to see in Standard because of cards like this and Nissa. You're pretty much just gonna end the game when you play Tyranax Rex. I mean, it's just really, really strong. It's a giant green beater. I mean, there's not much to it. It's exactly what it does. It does exactly what it says on the box with all of its freaking keywords. And yeah, 7 mana, 8/8, haste, trample, ward 4, toxic 4. Doesn't have hexproof, but ward 4. Oof, that might as well be hexproof in a lot of decks you're fighting. Will this card see play? Yes. Will this card make mono green good? Alongside Nissa? Absolutely. Vraska, Betrayal's Sting. 4 and a black for a Phyrexian and a Phyrexian mana. Phyrexian black mana. And if you play it, it's completed, so if you do pay the life, you'll enter with 2 less loyalty counters, but it starts at 6. You can pay 0 to draw a card, lose 1 life, and then proliferate. Really strong. -2. You can turn a creature into a treasure artifact, and it loses all other card types and abilities. Really good. And the -9 is if target player has fewer than 9 poison counters, they get a number of poison counters equal to the difference. This card ends the game. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, whenever, I mean, you'll there are cards right now that'll literally just end the game with Vraska. I believe there is a card in Standard that doubles the amount of counters put on. Yeah, oh yeah, duh. Okay, so you play this in Explorer with an effect like Vorinclex, Monstrous Raider, and play it, activate that. They get, if they have fewer than 9 poison counters, they'll probably have 0. 9. And then double that, 18. That's dead. So, and that's a 2-card combo. So, will this card see play? Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great. I mean, and the fact that all you need to do to get this combo off is proliferate a good handful of times, which Vraska already does, and you draw a card while you're doing it. Wow, this card's good. Is it going to fit into a mono black deck? No. I don't think it's going to fit into like mono black mid-range or aggro like we've been seeing. I think it'll be its own deck. I think this card is actually a build-around, dare I say. Really, really strong. Let's see play it like in places other than Standard? Absolutely. Remember, kids, Bolt the Bird. Absolutely. Absolutely Bolt the Bird. Here's the green one. I think we've gotten to all of them now. This is the green one. 5 and 2 green. So another 7 mana thing to do. For a 4/6 reach. At the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control this turn. And then you can pay 2 Phyrexian green to sacrifice 2 other creatures, and you put an indestructible counter on Zopandrel. Or Zopandrel. Zopandrel. Whatever. Either or. Is this card good? No. There's another card just like this in Standard. It's a 5 mana enchantment, and it doesn't see any play at all. So why would a 7 mana version of that card see play? It won't. Unnatural Growth, I think, is what that card is called, that enchantment. I could be wrong. This card's not going to see play at all in Standard. Will it see play in Commander? It's really expensive, and you could just play that other card I was just talking about. So I think this is the worst of the Dominus cards. So I'm not going to say much more about it because it's just not great. I made a tweet in the Magic community about this card, and it got like 140 likes. Archfiend of the Dross. 2 black and a 6/6 flyer. It's a Phyrexian demon, and it says it enters the battlefield with 4 oil counters on it. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you remove an oil counter from Archfiend of the Dross. And if it has no oil counters on it, you lose the game. And whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, it loses 2 life. Okay, that's that effect we don't care about. It's the effect about removing the oil counters that we care about. There is a card in Standard. It's called Fateful Handoff. It's you draw a number of cards equal to the mana cost of a card, and then you give it to an opponent. The idea is you play this card when it's about to just go out or die, hand it off to your opponent, draw 4 cards, because your opponent's not going to want this card. They'll lose the game. Or, in different format, you can Fateful Offering, and then Vampire Hexmage, remove all the counters from it. They lose the game. You can also do, you can play this card and then play not Fractured Identity. Is it, what am I thinking of? It's the blue one. Is it Fractured Identity? Let me look it up on the other monitor here. Fractured Identity. I think it is. Yeah, it is. Okay, so Fractured Identity says exile target non-land permanent, and each other player other than its controller creates a token copy of it. You can do that. This card's really awesome to pull off combos with. It's gonna be slept on because it's a really niche card, but there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with this card, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing it. Somebody lose the game to this card. I love lose the game effects, and especially if it does it to you. I mean, look at Phage. That's a classic example. Anyway, Argentum Masticore. This is actually a really good Masticore. It's a 5 mana 5/5 first strike protection, excuse me, for multicolor. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Argentum Masticore unless you discard a card. And whenever you discard a card this way, destroy target non-land permanent with an opponent controls with mana value less than or equal to the mana value of the discarded card. 5 mana 5/5 first strike pro multicolor. It has some protection. It's niche protection, but it's good protection. And discarding cards that you're not playing to blow up your opponent's non-land permanent seems really good. I mean, I can't see a world where this card doesn't see some play in Standard. So I don't think there's much to say about this yet. I mean, there's not a whole lot of multicolored cards, but when there are, wink, because Wizards does things like this. They print cards like this, and then they have multicolored stuff, and this card will see a lot of play. It's also an artifact. I'm sure that's relevant in some situations. But I mean, just really good. Like, there's not a reality where the card isn't good. Put my non-land permanent nuts in your mouth. Shut up. How you doing, buddy? Black Cleave Cliffs. Okay, so we're getting to the lands. Enters tapped, and if you control 2 or fewer lands, these are quick lands. So if you can... Oh, okay, that's just the one. That's just the black-red one. Black Sun's Twilight. Okay, so we got a Twilight. You're nauseous? Is it because of the food that you ate the other day that you were telling me about? There's no way that you didn't get sick from that. Black Sun's Twilight is X and black for an instant. Up to one target creature gets -X until the end of the turn. And if X is 5 or more, you return a creature card mana value 5 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Know something today? Well, I hope you feel better, man. I'm sorry. Black Sun's Twilight is going to get back... Nothing today? Oh, okay. So... Black Sun's Twilight is going to get back stuff like Shieldred. It's going to get back stuff like Phyrexian Obliterator. But the question is, are you willing to pay 6 mana to get back a Shieldred? Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're trying to remove something from the game. And even if you're not trying to get something back from the graveyard, you can play this and kill something on your opponent's board. It's as simple as that. I mean, it's going to see play. It's a really good removal. It's an efficient removal spell. And it also has a potential of getting stuff back. So it's going to be a good card. Standard, yeah, definitely. It'll see some play. Okay, Blade of Shared Souls. This is the first card we've seen that has Firmiridan on it. People are very upset about the fact that it has an exclamation point as a part of the keyword. 2 and a blue. I don't really care that much. Equipment. So Firmiridan says, whenever this equipment enters the battlefield, you create a 2/2 red rebel and then attach it to it. Very not too far off from Living Weapon. It's just a 2/2 instead of a 0/0. So that's obviously good, better. So whenever Blade of Shared Souls becomes attached to a creature, for as long as Blade of Shared Souls remains attached to it, you may have that creature become a copy of another target creature you control. So this is interesting. So you can essentially play 3 mana to copy a creature, but when that when you... See, this is really interesting because you can turn really small creatures into another big one that you already have. So, will this card see play in Standard? Probably. I mean, it's a cool card. It's basically a clone effect, right? So, yeah, it has to be something you control. So, but like at the same time, I see this card being really good. Like, I mean, it's... The asking price for it off the bat is just $1, but I'm sure there's some shenanigans you can pull with this card. I mean, being able to, like, at any time to turn one of your creatures into a copy of something else seems really strong. Will it see play in Standard? It's a little slow. But I'm just saying, imagine turning, like, in mono blue, turning one of your creatures into a Haughty Djinn, or turning it into a Tolarian Terror. I mean, that seems really good. Or, I mean, hell, getting down No, I mean, those are the 2 best examples I can think of in Standard, to be quite honest. In mono blue, I mean. Other decks, sure, you can go wild with this. Bloated Contaminator. This is 2 and a green. Also, I'm just going to be reviewing the rares today. I'm not going to be going through all the draft chaff. I'll be doing plenty of that on my sealed stream next week. Bloated Contaminator is 2 and a green for a Phyrexian Beast. It's a 4/4 Trampler with Toxic 1, so it's already really good. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, proliferate. So Toxic will go off first, and it'll proliferate. So technically it has Toxic 2, and it proliferates, so it puts another counter on. So this is a 3-mana 4/4 Trampler with Toxic 2, essentially, if you don't look at the proliferate, at the other upsides of having proliferate. Is this card good? Absolutely! It's one of those cards that's going to make green playable again and standard. It's a mono color. There's not really much else to say about it. It's a really good card. I mean, I don't know if it'll see play in Commander. I mean, it seems good in Commander too. The idea of proliferating things is always great. And we'll just have to wait and see. I think it's good. I think it's good. I think it's going to be good in a lot of places for that exact reason. Blue Sun's Twilight. So this is gain control of target creature with mana value X or less, and if X is 5 or more, you create a token that's a copy of that creature. And it's X into blue. Are you ever willing to pay 7 mana to gain control of a creature that is 5 mana or less and make a copy of it? Card's not good. Sorry. We've seen effects very similar to that, and they haven't seen play. This card is going to be very similar in the way that it will not see play. For a card called Blue Sun's Twilight, it is pretty much sunset itself before it's even hit the table. It's not a great card, and the fact that it's a sorcery kills it even more. Conduit of Worlds. So this is 2 and 2 green for an artifact, and says you can play lands from your graveyard. Those effects are really strong. I mean, Crucible of Worlds was a really expensive card for a long time for a reason. It was a one-off effect that we never saw in any other card. And then we started seeing like Ramunap, Excavator, and stuff like that. But this card says 2 and 2 green. You may play land cards from your graveyard, and tap. You can choose target non-land card in your graveyard, and if you haven't cast a spell this turn, you may cast that card. If you do, you cannot cast additional spells this turn. So, is this card worth it? Yes, this card's really good. It's not. I don't know if it's definitely not going to see a whole lot of play in standard, but there is a sort of incentive for self-mill with Titania. And it makes me think that is there going to be a self-mill like Golgari deck where this fits in? And I'm thinking it'll be a really cool deck if it does exist. And the fact that you can choose a non-land permanent, which Titania is the first one that comes to mind, and get it back and cast it and do nothing else for the turn, that's fine. I mean, most of the time when you get this card down, you're mostly just the reason you're playing this card is because you want to play a big card from your graveyard that like synergizes with your deck. So is this card going to see play? Absolutely. Is it a great card? I think it's really awesome. And I think it's really cool to see a Crucible of Worlds, Conduit of World, with an upside, with an additional upside, but it's specifically in green, so that would be the downside. It can't be played everywhere. But is it a cool card? Yes, I love it. It's really cool. Not a big green fan either, and I really like this card. Copperline Gorge is another quick land, and it's for red-green, so that gorgeous art by Sergey is really nice there. Darkslick Shores, same thing. It's a quick land for Dimir. Looks very cool. Dragonwing Glider. Okay. The Dragonwing Glider is a 3 and 2 red for Mirrodin equipment, so it does enter with a 2/2 attached to it, or attached to a 2/2 rather. And the creature gets +2. Creature gets +2/+2 as flying and haste. So you're paying 5/5 You're paying 5 mana for a 4/4 flying and haste. Is this card good? I mean, we have seen cards in the past that you know, 5 mana for a 4/4 flying haste. We currently have Shivan Devastator in standard. And that card is technically a better version of this one. Why is it technically better? Because it's a lot more flexible. The fact that this is an equipment and you can like put it on something else, but the fact that it's equip cost of 5 is like, ooh, kind of a death blow for this card. But in that regard, I think this card will see play. I think it's really good. I think it's a 5 mana 4/4 flying haste. You can never say no to that. That's just really good. It's definitely a finisher in limited. Is it going to see play in standard? Probably not. It's a little too expensive. Is it going to see play in equipment decks? Yeah, it's a pretty decent equipment. And if you can find ways to cheat and like just throw equipment onto other things, which there is a card that we will see very soon that does that, I think that this card will be good. But we'll have to wait and see. I know I've been saying we have to wait and see, but honestly, that's the nature of cards. We don't know if they're going to play well or not off the bat. Encroaching can't talk. Encroaching Mycosynth. 3 and a blue. Non-land permanents you control are artifacts in addition to their other types. The same is true for permanent spells you control and non-land permanents cards that you own that aren't on the battlefield. It's a Mycosynth Lattice, but only for you. Is Mycosynth Lattice a good card? Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. Mostly because you can turn your opponent's creatures into artifacts, or turn all their permanents into artifacts. Excuse me. Good lord. Oh. Hiccuping because I'm talking so fast. So, is this card good because it's like a single-sided effect? It's an interesting question. If you have Artifact Matters stuff, like Improvise or Affinity, sure. But this is a bit slow for Affinity and stuff like that. So, we'll have to wait and see. But, cards like this can kind of just make you a targeting commander because somebody can just Vandal Blast and blow up all your crap. So it's just like, you know, it makes you think, is it worth it? Another good green creature, Evolved Spinoderm. 2 and 2 green for a 5/5. It enters the battlefield with 4 oil counters on it. And it has Trample as long as it has 2 or fewer oil counters on it. Otherwise, it has Hexproof. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you can remove an oil counter from Evolved Spinoderm. And then if it has no oil counters on it, sacrifice it. So this is kind of like a fading effect. It's a 4 mana 5/5. And it gets stronger as it goes until it isn't. So is a 4 mana 5/5 worth it? Maybe. I mean, is a 4 mana 5/5, if it lasts long enough, that would it become trampled? It gets trampled. Seems good. And then the turn after that, so it has 4, and then it has trample if it has 2. So, and then you move one on an upkeep. So it's gonna take a bit for you to get to the trample thing, unless you have things that specifically remove counters from other things. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, but I think this card's good enough. It's a 4 mana 5/5. Azuri, Stalker of Spheres. 2 green and a blue for a 3/3. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you may pay 3. If you do, proliferate twice. And whenever you proliferate, draw a card. There you go. More proliferate synergy. Is this going to be a commander? Absolutely, without a doubt. This will be a card that people would love to play in commander. It's going to be a cheap card, too, to pick up. But proliferating is a big thing that blue-green likes to do. And you can pay 7 mana to proliferate twice. And when you proliferate twice, you draw 2 cards. Because when it says whenever you proliferate, period, draw a card. Whenever you proliferate, comma, technically. But is this card good? Yeah, great. It's a really awesome card that we're going to see a lot of. And definitely in Commander. Standard? No, 7 mana is a bit much for that effect. Geth, Thane of Contracts. This card is laughably bad. Somebody put it on Twitter as this looked like it would have been a card like 20 years ago. And they're kind of right. Geth, Thane of Contracts, the amount of downsides. 1, 2 black, and a 3/4. Other creatures you control get -1/-1. And 1 black, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains, if this creature would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. Activate is only a sorcery. The flavor text saying somebody forgot to read the fine print is somebody actually going out of their way to play this card. It's terrible. The fact that it gives your creatures -1/-1, and then you can pay 3 to return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and if it would die, it gets exiled instead. It's just like, man, they couldn't have put more and it's only as a sorcery. They death blew this card so hard that the amount of downsides on this card, it's laughable. It's just so bad. It's not going to see any play anywhere. It's just so bad. Returning a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield is usually a pretty powerful effect, but like the way that they put it on this card, it's just trash. On the other side of things, we have Glissa Sunslayer. She is a powerful card. So she is a 1, a black, and a green. Also, what the hell did they do to Geth? Geth was such a great card, and then they made him that. Anyway, 1, a black, and a green for a 3/3 Phyrexian zombie elf. She has first strike and death touch, and whenever she deals combat damage to a player, choose 1. Draw a card and lose 1 life. Destroy target enchantment, and remove up to 3 counters from target permanent. So, remember I was talking about Archfiend of the Dross? Good card, right? So, you can remove 3 oil counters from it. So, draw a card, and it's just a really flexible card. It's a really good blocker. It's a really good attacker. Not much to say about it. It's just a really good card, and it's going to see play in it. This is going to be one of those cards that sees play in standard just because it's a really solid beater and defender, and it does a lot. So, and flexibility always pays off in Magic, it really does. So, yeah, I don't think there's anything much else to say about it. It'll be good in Commander too. So, moving on. Goliath Hatchery. So this is 4 and 2 green for a green enchantment. Whenever it enters the battlefield, create 2 3/3 green Phyrexian beast creature tokens with Toxic 1. And Corrupted. Corrupted means if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, something happens. At the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, choose a creature you control and draw cards equal to its total toxic value. Is that good? It's a 6 mana, create 2 3/3s, and then it has an upside even afterward. Yeah, I think this is a good card. We've seen a lot of proliferate in green, and there's a lot of toxic in green. So hitting things and then like getting proliferating them and then drawing cards. Yeah, I think it's a good card. I don't know where it's gonna. I think it might actually just fit into like the mono green like beaters deck, but it's a good card. I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about this card. It's a little expensive for what it is, but it's an enchantment. And making 2 3/3s, so making 6/6 worth of stats for 6 mana and having an upside seems good. I think it'll see play in standard. Anywhere else, probably not. Graz, Unstoppable Juggernaut. This card is a great meme. So it's 8 mana, 7/5. Juggernauts you control attack each combat if able. Juggernauts you control can't be blocked by walls. And other creatures you control have base power and toughness 5/3 and are Juggernauts in addition to their other types. There was some guy out there in the ether that was begging for a Juggernaut commander. Here it is. I hope you're happy. I don't know what to say. It's literally just it's a Juggernaut. It's just a bigger Juggernaut. Is it a good card? Probably not. Is it funny? Absolutely, it's a funny card. And I mean, it might be able to actually close out some games. It's an 8 mana artifact, so the idea of literally just playing this with all of your Power Stone mana seems good. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seems alright. Like it's just kind of goofy. It's a goofy, fun card that I think it's actually not that bad. Green Sun's Twilight. So this is X and a green, and you reveal the top X. Oh, this is a sorcery, by the way. Reveal the top X plus 1 of your cards of your library. Choose a creature card from among them. Put those cards into your hand. Choose a creature card and or a land from among them. Okay, that's good. Put those cards into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library. In a random order, and if X is 5 or more, instead put the chosen cards onto the battlefield or into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. 6 mana to reveal the top 5 cards of your library, and then put a land and potentially a creature onto the battlefield of any mana cost. Yeah, this is a good card. It's like a baby Genesis Wave. Yeah, it's like a single target Coco. I mean, it's a sorcery, but honestly, like if you're playing a lot of big green beaters like that 7 mana 8/8 we were talking about earlier with all those keywords, getting that for 6 mana, there you go. There's a way to cheat it out. So And there's also a lot of other great green creatures that you wouldn't feel bad about getting for 6 mana and also getting a ramp off of it in addition. Is that worth it? Yeah, I think so. Is it going to see play in standard? I hope so. It's actually a cool card. I like it. I like Coco type effects. But we'll have to wait and see. I think it's good. I think it's good in Commander because like you can dump a lot of mana into this. Look for something very specific. Throw it onto the battlefield, tooth and nail style. Seems good. Jor Kadeen, first Gold Warden. He's back. He lived, surprisingly. He is a red and a white for a 2/2 human creature. I'm sorry, legendary creature, human rebel. He has trample, and whenever he attacks, he gets +X till the end of the turn, where X is the number of equipped creatures you control. Then, if his power is 4 or greater, draw a card. So he seems very strong. So this would be a card that would make that equipment deck that we were talking about with Nahiri actually like viable. So we have for Mirrodin, which like snaps things onto artifacts. So all you have to do is have 2 equipped creatures, and he can be one of them. And he's essentially just... I mean, you don't even need to have equipped creatures to draw a card with him. He can literally just be a 2 mana 2/2 with trample, a good bear, and then slap an artifact onto him, like the sword, and he'll be a 4/4 and he'll draw a card. Is this a good card? Yeah, absolutely. People, I mean, the original Jor Kadeen was kind of boring. This card's a little bit boring, but honestly, it's card draw in red-white. I mean, why would you ever say no to that? It seems really, really solid. And yeah, I guarantee we're going to see this played in standard to some extent. It's a 2 mana 2/2 trample, and it just gets better and better. Is it going to be a commander? Yeah, absolutely. It's a great commander. It's a fun commander. It's a cheap commander. Kaido, Dancing Shadow. So, Kaido is one of the walkers that didn't get completed, which we haven't seen a lot of those. I think we've seen all the completed walkers because they're mythic. And the regular walkers are regular because they are in the rare slot. So, Kaido, Dancing Shadow. 2 blue and a black for a legendary planeswalker Kaido with 3 starting loyalty of 3. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you may return one of them to your owner's hand, and if you do, you may activate loyalty abilities of Kaido twice this turn instead of once. That's a really cool effect. It's a nice little take on ninjutsu. +1, up to 1 target creature can't attack or block until your next turn. And 0 is draw a card. And -2 is create a 2/2 colorless drone artifact creature token with death touch, and whenever this creature leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. People were talking a lot of trash about this card. I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as people are saying it is. Is it going to see play in standard? I don't know. The fact that you can make something unable to attack or block is really strong. The fact that you can technically do it twice if you get a nice little ninjutsu-esque trigger off of it seems really, really solid. You can make 2 things unable to attack or block. You can draw 2 cards. Or you can create a drone, the little drone that he has with him all the time, which has death touch. And you could do something else. This card synergizes with itself. It's a bit clunky, but it does synergize with itself. Is it really good? It's okay. Is it going to see play in standard? Probably somewhere. But I think it's definitely a card you want to put into your ninjas deck. It just seems like a fun card for ninjas. And it's on theme, because he's a ninja, so... Anyway, yeah, decent card. Is he going to see a lot of play? Don't know, but it looks cool. Ah, yes, the Rat King. This is Karumonix. Karumonix. The Rat King. Toxic 1, and other rats you control have Toxic 1. Wow, Rat Commander. Whenever Karumonix enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal any number of rats from among them and put those revealed rats into your hand. Put the rest of the non-rats on the bottom of your library in a random order. Rat Commander. Rat Commander. That's what this is. Rat Commander. Is it going to be good in standard? Hell no, they didn't make this card for standard. They made it for folks that like rats and commander. So rats. Rats. It's a cool card. I don't know. I don't really have much else to say about it. It's a cool and awesome card. I love it. I like rats. Alright. Our next Planeswalker is a 7 mana Planeswalker. Kaya, Intangible Slayer. She has 2 white and 2 black for a legendary Planeswalker Kaya. She has Hexproof. We've never seen hexproof on a Planeswalker. That's going to make this card really obnoxious. +2. Each opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3 life. That's okay. 0 is you can draw 2 and then each opponent may scry 1. But the -3 is what we're here for. Exile target creature or enchantment. If it wasn't an aura, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 1/1 white spirit and with flying in addition to its other types. +2 is good. -3 is what we're here for. That's the bread and butter of this card. Blowing up something and then being able to just create a copy of it to protect Kaya, to do that again or do something else. Really, really solid. It's gonna see play. It's just really good. It's expensive as hell, but it will see play, I guarantee it. Kemba, Conjuring. 1 and a white for a 2/2 legendary creature, Cat Cleric. Should be a rebel. A lot of people have been pointing that out, that she definitely should have the rebel type. But anyway, whenever she or another cat enters the battlefield under your control, attach up to 1 target equipment you control to that creature. Equipped creatures you control get +1/+1, and then you can pay 5 mana to create a 2/2 white cat creature token. This card is, people have already said that this card's going to just be put into decks with Colossus Hammer, and she literally is turn 1 Colossus Hammer, turn 2 play Kemba, turn 3 swing in. I mean, this card's really good. It's just, yeah, it ETBs and then grabs an equipment and throws it onto itself. So this card is definitely going to see play in that red-white equipment deck that we were talking about, that I'm sure a lot of people are going to give a try when the set drops. Is this card good? Yeah, absolutely. It's a 2/2 with an upside. I mean, it's a 2-mana 2/2 with an upside. It's definitely good. And then you can create more tokens to create more equipped creatures. Yeah, this is going to be one of those cards that'll be just right alongside Jorkadi. Is it great in Commander? Yes, absolutely. Right alongside the original Kemba. This is a card that's seen a lot of talk. Kethek Crucible Goliath. It's a Phyrexian beast. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. And if you do, it says may, obviously, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-legendary creature with lesser mana value. Put it onto the battlefield, and then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I guarantee there's a specific way to build this kind of deck in order to like get the exact things that you want thrown onto the battlefield, but other than that, I don't see this card being very good in Standard. It's a 4-mana 4/4 with a kind of almost a downside if you look at it that way. You're blowing up something to get something else. If the something is actually good, I'm sure there's creatures that you would want to grab that are lesser mana cost than some of the things that would deal with the board a little bit better at the given moment. But I don't see this being very good, gonna be honest. Anyway, maybe in Commander when somebody can come up with something goofy and fun. Kinzu of the Bleak Coven. So this is a Phyrexian vampire. Wow, strange. 4 and a black for a 5/4 flyer. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life and exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 1/1 and has Toxic 1. Aristocrats. That being said, this exiles, so a little iffy. Is it great? No. Is it great in Standard? No. Is it going to be a fun niche Commander card? Sure, absolutely. It's just a little... It's a weird, silly niche Commander. Koth, Fire of Resistance. So we did find out that Koth is not... he is okay. He's uncompleted. And he's still alive somehow. He has 2 and 2 red for a 4 loyalty legendary Planeswalker Koth. +2, you can search your library for a basic mountain card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. -3, Koth deals damage equal to deals damage to target creature equal to the number of mountains you control. And -7 is you get an emblem with whenever a mountain enters the battlefield under your control, this emblem deals 4 damage to any target. If you can manage to get to the -7, it's literally just a better Valakut. But the +2 to grab a mountain is iffy, especially if this thing's already at 4 mana, so it's pretty slow to do that. -3, dealing damage equal to the number of mountains you control. On average, when you play Koth, it's probably going to be like dealing 3 to 4 damage. So 4 mana, dealing 4 damage. We saw An old Chandra Fire Resistance do something like this, and it was really strong for that reason. It was able to blow up things, but you have to consistently do 3 to 4 damage, so this is not going to fit in the deck that isn't mono red. Is this card good? It'll see play, that's for damn sure. Being able to fetch a mountain is really strong. It's a basic mountain only though, so like I said, it's pretty much gonna have to just be playing mono red. The -7, if you can ever get to that, it's great. The -3 to blow up something as soon as it hits the field, and then if your Koth does survive, you can get some mana advantage by getting more lands to play different things in your hand. Yeah, it's good enough. It's good enough. I don't know if it'll bump out anything that's already in a lot of the mono red decks, which are very aggressive right now, by the way. There's no big red in standard. Malcator Purity Overseer. Wow, this is a weird one. It's a 1, a white, and a blue for a legendary creature, Phyrexian Elephant Wizard. Sounds like something you'd see on the side of a van. Or, you know, an album from the late 60s. When Malcator Purity Overseer enters the battlefield, you create a 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golem. At the beginning of your end step, if 3 or more artifacts enter the battlefield under your control this turn, which isn't that hard given the past few sets we've seen, create a 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golem artifact creature token. So literally create Power Stone tokens. I mean, Power Stone tokens, there's a lot of tokens. There's treasures in standard because of Capenna. Is this card going to see play? Yeah, absolutely. It's an awesome card. It's a 3 mana 1/1 that creates a 3/3. It's one of the it's like a splicer. Not a splicer. No, I think that's what they were called. Is this going to see play? Yeah, 3 mana 1/1 that creates a 3/3. Good, and then you can create more 3/3s. Seems good to me. Weird elephant wizard. Okay, Melira, the Living Cure. She is a green and a white for a 3/3, which is already really strong. If you would get 1 or more poison counters, instead you get 1 poison counter, and you cannot gain an additional poison counter this turn. And then you can exile Melira, the Living Cure. Choose another target creature or artifact. When it is put into the graveyard this turn, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. The fact that she exiles kind of makes her bad, but the fact that she's a 2 mana 3/3 that has like a defensive thing against a prominent keyword in standard, which is going to be toxic and putting poison counters on things, seems good. It doesn't give you full protection, only gives you a little bit of protection, which implies that the Phyrexian Oil has gotten a lot stronger in the story, and it has. So is this card going to see play? Yeah, sure. It's a 2 mana 3/3 that has upsides. It's just good enough, and I'm sure people are going to be playing this in Commander too. The anime art's pretty cool, I guess. I'm not big into the anime type stuff. Mercurial Spelldancer, 1 and a blue for a 2/1 Phyrexian Rogue. It can't be blocked. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you put an oil counter on it. And whenever Mercurial Spelldancer deals combat damage to a player, you may remove 2 oil counters from it, and when you do, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn is copied, and you can choose new targets. Is this card good? It's a little weird. I don't know where it fits in. I don't know if it does necessarily fit in. Is that okay? Sure. It beats be a spellcaster deck. 2 mana 2/1 can't be blocked. It seems already pretty strong in that regard. And whenever you're casting non-creature spells, mono blue. Okay, yeah, mono blue is where this would fit in. So you'd get stuff like you would copy your counter spells. You'd copy Fading Hope. You'd copy draw spells. Yeah, no, actually, this seems pretty good. I guarantee it'll see play in mono blue in standard. Megalaz, what a weird name. Maze Crusher, 1, a red and a green for a 4/4 and enters the battlefield with 5 oil counters on it. You can pay 1 to remove a single oil counter from it and give it Vigilance and Menace. You can pay 2 to remove 2 from it and give it +2/+2, and then you can remove 3 counters from it for 3 mana, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Is this good? Yeah, especially if you're proliferating and putting counters back on it. This thing just pays for itself, and it just it does everything you'd want it to do. The fact that you can literally just pay 1 the next turn and give it Vigilance and Menace is really strong. It's a 3 mana 4/4. Is it going to see play in standard? Sure. I mean, there seems to be some sort of green or green-red kind of stompy deck incoming. So, like I said, we'll have to wait and see. But I think this card is going to see play in standard. It's a little bit actually kind of weak, though, compared to a lot of its counterparts like Alyssa and stuff like that. So, I don't know. We'll see. But I'll see some play, I guarantee it. This is a card a lot of folks have been talking about. Mind Splice Apparatus. This is 3 and a blue for a flash artifact. Artifact with flash, rather. At the beginning of your upkeep, you put an oil counter on Mind Splice Apparatus, and instants and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each oil counter on Mind Splice Apparatus. People are all obviously saying the thing. It's a 4 mana do nothing. But with Proliferate being as prominent as it is, all you need to do is get a single oil counter on this thing, and this thing can go really insane. We've already seen Urza do pretty okay in Standard. It's not like a mainstay deck just yet, but reducing the cost of instants and sorceries is already a really strong effect, especially when we see really powerful, strong instants and sorceries that need to be reduced. Honestly, Bluestone's Twilight might actually benefit from a card like this, making it cost significantly less to actually make it worth playing. Is this card amazing in Commander? Yeah, absolutely. If you can get it off in Commander and start proliferating, I mean, it's insane. Is it good in Standard? Probably not. It's 4 mana, do nothing. Even if you do play it during your opponent's turn, you'd rather be doing something like drawing cards. Mirran Safe House. It's a 3 mana stop rock. At the beginning of as long as it's on the battlefield, it has activated abilities of all land cards and all graveyards. I'm sorry, it's not a stop rock. It gains activated abilities of all land cards and all graveyards. So this could technically turn into a Mishra's Foundry for 3 mana. Is that worth it? Maybe. There's a lot of lands that actually do things right now, and I can't think of all of them. Is this gonna be good? Maybe. I mean, I really don't know. It's one of those cards we'll have to see. I don't think there's a lot of stuff in Standard that interacts with lands very well in the graveyard, but we're definitely going to be seeing a set coming up very soon. Oops, sorry about that. Probably a loud noise. We're going to be seeing sets that are probably going to have land-based stuff coming up very soon, so we'll just have to see. Right now, I don't think this card's very good in Standard at all. Mirrex. Okay, so we're to the spheres. This is a sphere land. I don't know. Ooh, new type. It doesn't really do anything. You can tap to add a generic. You can tap to add 1 mana of any color, but you can only activate this if it enters the battlefield this turn. So, a little bit weird, but interesting. And then you can pay 3 to tap and create a 1/1 Might. So those Mights are 1/1 artifact creatures with Toxic 1, and they can't block. Is that worth it? I mean, that token deck I was talking about, this deck, I mean, I'll definitely enjoy it in that. Anywhere else, I'm not really sure. It's kind of a weird one-off land that's like not necessarily great. It'll see play. In Standard, yes, absolutely, because it's literally just 1 mana of any color with the turn you play it, and that's definitely good mana fixing when you need it. In Commander, yeah, sure, why not? I mean, it makes tokens. Anything that makes tokens and keeps the game going is gonna be good. Might Overseer, follow up from the Mirrex. 3 and a white for a 4/2 first strike. As long as it's your turn, creature tokens you control get +1/+0 and have first strike. Here we go. Like I said, creature token Standard, here we go. And then you can also pay 3 and a Phyrexian white to create a Might. So this is a 4 mana Lord, essentially, that gives your creature tokens first strike. Yeah, like I said, creature tokens are going to see play, and it seems like a good mid-range for them. This is something that you're going to be wanting to do anyway, so yeah, I'll see play in Standard, and I'll see play in any other place that plays tokens, definitely in Commander too. Ooh, excuse me, I had to pop my neck there. Monument to Perfection. The art on this is really cool, by the way. 2, for an artifact, you can pay 3 to search your library for a basic sphere. For a basic sphere or locust land card, excuse me. Reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Then you can pay 3 mana to make it a 9/9 Phyrexian Construct artifact creature that loses all abilities and gains Indestructible and Toxic 9. You can only activate this if there are 9 or more lands with different names among the basic sphere and locust lands you control. So, we have an issue here. It's really hard to pull off. So you need to get all 5 basic lands and 4 of the spheres. hard to do. Especially, I think that has to be... Yeah, you have to control these lands, so... Also has to be specifically basic sphere or locust lands. I don't think we have locust lands yet. I'd have to double check, but I think we just have spheres in this set, so we'll have to wait and see. But this card's gonna, like I said, we'll have to wait and see. This set's pretty much like a preliminary set to a bunch of stuff that's coming up in Magic 2023. So, is this card good? I mean, we've seen cards like this before that search up specific cards. It's kind of trash if you look at it. Quite frankly, it's not going to see a lot of play in Commander. I mean, if you could get it off in Commander, but why would you go through all that effort? Golos is banned, dude. Just play a different deck. But Standard, I don't see it working. Norn's Wellspring. 1 and a white. Whenever a creature you control dies, scry 1 and you put an oral counter on Norn's Wellspring. And you can pay 1 and tap to remove 2 oral counters from Norn's Wellspring to draw a card. White card draw. White card draw. Whenever a creature you control dies, and your creatures will be dying, you scry 1 and put a counter on it, and then you can eventually get that payback by paying 1 to draw a card and removing those oral counters from it. Or if you're proliferating, you can do this more frequently. Is it good? Yes, it's card draw on white. You can never complain about card draw on white. Will it see play in Standard? Way too slow. Will it see gameplay in Commander? Absolutely. But other than that, yeah, no, I don't see it seeing play like pretty much anywhere. Alright, time for a weird card that's pretty much the Locust God. This is Ovika Enigma Goliath. It's 5, a blue, and a red for a 6/6 flying ward 3. And pay 3 life. So it not only have you have to pay 3 additional mana to target this thing, you also have to pay 3 life. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you create X 1/1 red Phyrexian Goblin creature tokens, where X is the mana value of the spell, and they gain haste until the end of the turn. It's a really weird card. Is it gonna see play? Sure. Not in Standard. It's way too expensive in Commander. I'm sure somebody will try to play this, but this is basically just Locust God. That's exactly what it is. I don't know. They just reprinted a Locust God and made it more expensive. Phyrexian Arena. 1 and 2 black at the beginning of your upkeep. You draw a card and lose 1 life. It's a reprint of Phyrexian Arena, which is a very expensive card. So yeah, we're really happy to see it. Is it going to see play in Standard? It's really slow, so probably not. Is it going to see play in Commander? It already does see play in Commander. It's not a new card. This sees play in a lot of places. Standard, I don't think it's going to see play. Like I said, it seems just way too slow for Standard, but, well, you know, I'm sure some folks will try to find a place for it. Razorverge Thicket, another quick land. Completely dependent on the fact if you're have less than 2 lands when you play it. Red Sun's Twilight. X and 2 red. Destroy up to X target artifacts, and if X is 5 or more for each artifact destroyed this way, create a token that's a copy of it. These tokens gain haste. Exile them at the beginning of next end step. Bad. I mean, it's literally... It'll see play because you're going to be making copy of people's stuff. So I could see this being fun in Commander, where you're playing Mycosynth Lattice, because you're a jerk, and paying 7 mana to blow up a bunch of your opponent's stuff, gaining copies of it that gain haste, swinging in, pretty much killing them. In Standard, this isn't going to see any play at all, and in other formats, probably not. But Commander, this card has a great home in Commander. That's all I can say. Ah yes, Rock, Hex Gold Never. 2 and a, some said green, red for a 2/2 Goblin Rebel. It's a legendary creature because of course it is. They can't stop printing legendary cards apparently. It has Trample and Haste. Whenever equipped creature you control other than Ruck, Hex Gold Nabber attacks or dies, you may attach all equipment attached to that creature to Ruck. 3 mana 2/2 Trample Haste. This is gonna go in that Kemba, that Jor-Kadeen, that Nahiri deck, that equipment deck we were talking about. 3 mana 2/2 Trample Haste, and then you can just attach all the equipment to him to diversify threats. for free. Really good card. Is it going to say playing Commander? Probably, yeah, it's a cool card. But the fact is you're going to have to be like swapping equipment around, so it's like, we'll see. Rhea Ivor, Bane of Bladehold, 2 a white and a black for a 3/4 legendary creature for Phyrexian Knight. Again, with these legendary creatures, everything is legendary these days to appeal to commander players. Wish that weren't the case. Battlecry, whenever this creature attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until the end of the turn. And yes, this is a reference to Hero Bladehold. She is no longer the hero, obviously. At the beginning of combat on your turn, the next time target creature would deal combat damage to one or more players as combat, prevent that damage. If damage is prevented this way, create that many 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens with Toxic 1, and this creature cannot block. So, it's like a reverse King of Keldor? I don't know. I mean, it's a good card. It's gonna see play. It's gonna fit perfectly into that token deck. And it's a 4-mana 3/4 that has Battlecry. It's the only card in the set that has Battlecry. It'll certainly see play. That's for sure. Hero Bladehold saw play. This card will see play too. Sea Chrome's another quick land. Ew, I don't like how those look like teeth. Oh no, that's gross. That's actually cool art from that Yokobash Yogantas. I'm sorry if I slaughtered your name. Serum Sovereign, 4 and a blue for a 4/4 fly. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you can put an oil counter on Serum Sovereign. And you can pay a blue to remove an oil counter from Serum Sovereign, draw a card, and then scry 2. Obviously, a reference to Serum Visions. And it's just good. It's a 5-mana 4/4 flyer. It says whenever you cast a spell, put an oil counter on it, and then you can draw and scry with it. It's a 5-mana 4/4 flyer. And blue, yeah. I mean, hey, if you're playing that Unesh or Ubash or whatever his name is, the Sphinx Sovereign, Ubash, I don't remember. This card's a perfect fit for it. Other than that, I'll see it. I mean, it'll be okay in limited. Standard, maybe. We got better top ends for blue and standard. And commander, no, we don't need serum, a situational Serum Visions attached to a 4/4 flyer. Skrelv, Defector Might. Again, this creature did not need to have legendary, but okay. 1 white for a 1/1, and I'm a commander player, by the way. I know it sounds like I'm complaining for no reason, but they don't need to make everything legendary. Skrelv, Defector Might. 1 white for a 1/1 legendary artifact creature for Phyrexian Might. Toxic 1. Skrelv, Defector Might cannot block, just like his token brothers. You can pay a Phyrexian white to choose a color, and another target creature you control gains Toxic 1 hexproof from that color until the end of the turn, and it can't be blocked by creatures of that color until the end of the turn. Like I said, does not need to be legendary. Wizards, please. I know you're trying to. I know you like your legendary cards and stuff like that, but God, cut back on them. I like being able to have multiple copies of a card out on the board at the same time, especially a card like this that isn't really that strong. Seriously, it doesn't need to be legendary. It's a good card other than that. Speaking of a good card, that's... just kidding. Skrelv's Hive is literally a strictly worse Bitter Blossom. It is a 1 and a white. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 Phyrexian Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. And as long as an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, creatures you control Toxic have lifelink. Like I said, this is literally just a worse Bitter Blossom. We saw a similar one with Dreadhorde Invasion. Didn't see play. Is this going to see play at all? I mean, it can't block. It's just a crappy version of a token that you'd rather have. Will it see play? I'm sure somebody will try to find a home for this card, but it's not good. I'm going to see how much it's actually... pre-orders are up for it, and it's about between $5 and $7. There's no way in hell that this card will be that good. Like I said, it's just a strictly worse Bitter Blossom. And there is a Dreadhorde Invasion. And that didn't see play, and that could block. So, don't see it happening. Slowbad, Iron Goblin. So Slowbad got completed. Rip the Goblin homie. You can sack an artifact, add an amount of red equal to the sacrificed artifact's mana value. Spend this mana only to cast artifact spells or activate abilities of artifacts. No, not in standard. Commander, yes. I mean, it's a 3 mana 3/3, so it's like, okay. But then sacking an artifact to gain a bunch of red and then spending it only on artifacts and artifact abilities, definitely a commander only card. Soulless Jailer, 2/0/4. Permanent cards in graveyards can't enter the battlefield. Players can't cast non-creature spells from graveyards or exile. This is a really good card for our Death and Taxes. You can just stop all these exile effects that red has right now. Exile the top cards of your library, exile this, exile that. It shuts all that down. Permanents and graveyards can enter the battlefield, shuts down Reanimator. And it's a decent blocker. So yeah, it's another one of those like situational sideboard artifacts, but it'll see play. It'll absolutely see play. In standard, maybe. And other places, yeah, absolutely. I could see this thing play in modern. I'd guarantee this will go into the sideboard for Karn Great Creator, you know what I mean? So we'll have to see. Tablet of Completion. This card's trash, by the way, before I even start. 2, put an oil counter on it, and then you can tap to add a single generic, only if it has 2 or more non-oil counters, or 2 or more oil counters on it. And then you can pay 1 to tap, draw a card, activate if only if tablet has 5 or more oil counters on it. This might be good in a proliferate deck. I'm going to take back what I said just a little bit, but I just don't really see it doing that much. You two mana, hit the battlefield, does nothing, tap it, put an oil counter on it, and then you can't even do anything with it on the next turn that you tap it. So unless you're proliferating, this card is just awful. I could see this going immediately into Atraxa because it's not going to be very hard to get 5 oil counters on it if you're proliferating. Anywhere else, no. This card in standard is going to be trash too. There's a reason that it's selling for less than $1 already. This card's just actually awful. Yeah, no, nothing else to say about it. Finally, a good card. No, I'm kidding. The Eternal Wanderer, 4 and 2 white. And it says no more than 1 creature can attack the Eternal Wanderer each combat, so it has a built-in protection effect. You can exile up. You can pay or +1 is exile up to 1 target artifact or creature, and then you return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of that player's next end step. So what you can do is, if you have your opponent has a big creature, you can get rid of it until their next end step and be just fine. You can pay 0 to create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with double strike. Obviously good. And -4. This is the part we're waiting for. For each player, choose a creature that player controls. Each player sacrifices all creatures they control not chosen this way. Board wipe. And you get to choose what they keep. So 6 mana board wipe. Farewell is in standard, but the fact that you get to choose what survives might actually make this just a hair better than Farewell. And the fact that it'll still be alive after you play, you can play this card, activate that ability, and then keep it alive. If you can keep it alive at 1 loyalty, you can do things with your next turn. Like, this card's really good. I'm really glad to see that Wanderer is getting some actually good Planeswalker cards, because this definitely embodies what a badass she is. The Filigree Silex. Okay, here we go with the oil counters again. 2 mana for a legendary artifact. Tap, put an oil counter on the Filigree Silex. Tap, sacrifice the Filigree Silex. Destroy each non-land permanent with mana value equal to the number of oil counters. Oh, Timbo! Hey, wow! Hey, raid of 9 viewers. Welcome in, folks. Hi, Timbo. Thanks for the raid, buddy. I really appreciate that. Welcome in, folks. I'm just reviewing the cards here of Phyrexia All-Be-One, the Magic the Gathering set that's coming out in the near future. Next week, actually, on Arena. I appreciate you coming in. If you're not already following me, follow is free. Very much would appreciate that. And welcome in, Timbo. Thank you again, man. I really much appreciate it. Thank you for the raid. That's awesome. Like I said, I'm just reviewing the Magic cards of this set. Yeah, Yeah, thank you for the follow, Gold Moonster. Appreciate it. Timbo's bringing the magic. Hell yeah, absolutely he is. Follow is free, so I very much appreciate it. If you have a Prime sub, every little bit helps. This is technically my kind of full-time gig. Hope you're having an awesome stream. I'm having a great time. I'm literally just sitting here talking trash about cards or talking about how much I love cards. So it's very much something I love to do, and I appreciate the raid in, brother. I was just talking about the Filigree Silex here. So you can tap to put an oil counter on it. You can tap and sacrifice the Filigree Silex and destroy each non-land permanent with mana value equal to the number of oil counters on it. Which, and then you can remove 10 oil counters from among permanents you control, not just it, and then deal 10 damage to any target. So, makes you think. But there's a lot of proliferate stuff, so it can keep putting oil counters on this thing and have it do some serious damage. But I don't know. I don't see this card being that particularly great. Like I said, it's just one of those cards we'll have to see if Proliferate actually makes it playable, but in my opinion, no, it does not. We're getting to the end of the cards here, I believe. Yeah, we're getting to the cards. The Monumental Facade. This is a sphere. It enters with 2 oil counters on it, and you can tap to add a generic, or you can remove an oil counter to put an oil counter on target artifact or creature you control, activate only as a sorcery. It's not a legendary land, so you can have multiples of these, and literally just as soon as it enters the battlefield, you can throw an oil counter on something else. And then you can proliferate to keep putting oil counters on Facade and keep adding more, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. This card might make a lot of those decks that have like oil counters or counter-reliant things pretty relevant. It might make the Filigree Silex actually a good card. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. Seems cool. Seems like it'll be only good for this set though. The Mycosynth cards. You can tap to add a generic. You can tap 1 and filter a mana, and then you can tap X mana and tap, and it becomes a copy of target non-artifact you control with mana value X. So this card's gonna be really good in a lot of different formats. I'm not even talking standard. We're talking commander. We're talking modern. Literally having this thing enter the battlefield. You can use it as generic mana for a little while, and then you can have it become a copy of a non-token artifact. I mean, you can also have this thing become a copy of a Karnstruct for 0 mana and tap it. I mean, it's just really good. It's just a really good card. It's gonna see a lot of play in Commander because there's some goofy stuff you can do with it in Commander. Standard, I'm not sure. I don't think so, but like everywhere else, yeah. Seed Core. Tap to add 1 generic, or you can tap to add 1 mana of any color, and you can spend that to only cast Phyrexian creature spells. And then if corrupted, so if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, target 1/1 gets +2/+1 until the end of the turn. It's niche. If you're playing a Phyrexian heavy deck, sure, this will be really good. The whole idea of giving your 1/1 mites, which those are the 1/1s of this set, +2/+1 seems okay, but you're kind of going for more of a proliferate game plan there in that regard, so not so much. Thrun, Breaker of Silence. The Troll returns. 3 and 2 green for a 5/5. This spell can't be countered. It's a Troll Shaman, legendary creature Troll Shaman. He's back. Is Trample, and he can't be the target of non-green spells your opponents control or abilities from non-green sources. And as long as it's your turn, Thrun has Indestructible. Will Thrun terrorize Standard? Nah, probably not. I mean, 5 mana, 5/5 Trample. Can't be targeted by things that aren't green, period. He's still going to die to board wipes, but he's also indestructible on your turn. So he's kind of like a green version of Zergo Helm Smasher in that regard. You can wipe the board and still have him left over. So, yeah, seems really, really fun and strong. I don't know. 5 mana, 5/5 with upsides is never anything to sneeze at. Can't be countered. So, they'll see play in Standard guaranteed. Tavar, Jubilant Brawler. So Tavar is a planeswalker from Kaldheim. So he's 1, a black, and a green for a 3 loyalty walker. It says you may activate abilities of creatures you control as though those creatures had haste. You can pay 1, or I'm sorry, you not pay 1. You can add 1 loyalty to untap 1 target creature, and then you can -3 to mill 3 cards, then return a creature card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Tavar fits into that good like black-green mill thing self-mill that we were talking about earlier. The whole idea of just being able to mill yourself, grab back one of your Mana value 2 or less. 2 or less is a little bit restrictive, but the idea of being able to mill a bunch of stuff and then return something with mana value 2 or less, get back a mana dork so you can ramp into the good stuff in the late game. Seems really solid. Also, being able to untap a creature to add more mana with said mana dorks are really good. Also, you can activate these mana dorks as though they had haste because of his primary ability. Is he going to see play in standard? Sure. Is he going to see play in a lot of other formats? Yes. I mean, giving your mana dorks haste is a big deal. Also, it just says abilities. It doesn't just say it doesn't just say like mana ability. It says any ability. So anytime you want to play a creature that has a tap ability, you can activate it right away. So I'm thinking a little small, but he's all about small because mana value 2 or less. So, like I said, good card. Will he see play in standard? I hope so. He looks really fun. Unctis Grand Metatact. This is 1/2 blue for a 2/4 Phyrexian Vedalken. So this is a Grand Architect, and they made it legendary because, of course, they gotta make everything legendary. Other blue creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes tapped, draw a card and then discard a card. It's a Phyrexian Vedalken, by the way. Other artifact creatures you control get +1/+1, and then you can pay a blue Phyrexian mana to give target creature, or make target creature a blue artifact in addition to its other colors and types. You can only activate that as a sorcery. I believe there's an infinite combo with this card already. It's only $1. I'm actually not sure how the infinite combo works for this, but I've heard people talking about it. It's got it reads like a book, and honestly, I read you the effects and I couldn't tell you what it does. The fact that it gives other artifact creatures you control +1/+1 is already really solid, and other blue creatures becoming tapped let you draw and discard. It's a good card. The last part is a little less relevant. The fact that you can make something a blue artifact creature is cool, so it like gets both of the modes. It'll definitely be a commander that people play, or it'll be a general that people play in commander. Will it see play in standard? I mean, artifact creatures aren't super relevant right now, so probably not. Urabrask's Forge. This is 2 and a red. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you put an oil counter on Urabrask's Forge, and then you create an X1 red Phyrexian Horror token with Trample and Haste, where X is the number of oil counters on the Forge, and then you sacrifice that token. So it makes you a little sprinter. And you always keep putting oil counters on it, so there's that proliferate thing. You can make these big old like lightning elementals and swing them in, and then they die. They also have Trample and Haste, so this card see play. Is it too slow? No, I don't think so. 3 mana, make a 1/1 with Haste, swing in. 3 mana, make a 2/2 with Haste, swing in. Or 2/1 with Haste. It's gonna be at least good enough, right? Probably not for red aggro. It'll see play somewhere, I'm sure it will. This is a card that people are very afraid of, so much so that this card is $15 on the pre-order. 1 green for a 1/2 Phyrexian Druid with Toxic 1. Whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, target opponent gets a poison counter. Now, there is a deck called Heroic in an Explorer right now. Whenever a creature, the whole thing is just like whenever it's targeted by a spell, this thing says whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, period. So you can cast the spells. So there's obviously a lot of little cute combos you can do with this and do some like absolutely nasty mean stuff with this card. But it'll definitely be seeing a lot of play because it's a 1 mana 1/2 with essentially Infect. And if you target creatures with spells, yeah, it's not going to be great in standard. It'll be great in every other format in existence. But we'll just have to see if it does actually do anything in standard. Venser, Corpse Puppet. Again, why do they got to do him like this? They literally didn't need to do him like this, and they did him like this. So he's a Phyrexian zombie wizard. He's a blue and a black, 1/3 lifelink toxic 1. Whenever you proliferate, choose 1. If you don't control a creature named the Hollow Sentinel, create the Hollow Sentinel. That's a legendary 3/3 Phyrexian Golem artifact creature token, and then you can target artifact creature you control against flying and lifelink until the end of the turn. I mean, it's good enough. I mean, it's a 2 mana 1/3. Whenever you proliferate, do something. But blue-black isn't really the area that we're kind of wanting to proliferate in, unless you're playing Vraska. So, will this card see play in standard? Yeah, absolutely. I think it will. because you can literally just proliferate on the next turn after you play it and get a 3/3 out of it. So that seems really solid. And if it dies, you can just keep doing it. It's very much like that. What's that one? There's a creature that came out in Kamigawa that lets you create a 3/3 frog. Legendary 3/3 frog if you cast an enchantment spell. This is along the same lines, and both that card's not super strong in standard, but this card is cheaper, and I think it can do it a bit better than how the frog did it. Like I said, Venser didn't deserve that though. Jesus. Vindictive Flamestoker. This is also a card that people are talking about being like a format shifter, but I don't think it's going to be that great. 1 red for a 1/2. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you put an oil counter on Vindictive Flamestoker, and then you can Stoker, not Stroker, Jesus. 6 and a red, you can sacrifice Stoker and discard your hand and then draw 4 cards. This costs 1 less to activate for each oil counter on it. So again, with the oil counter things, if you have oil counter synergies, this card can be really, really good. And you're going to be casting non-creature spells in red anyway, so might as well just play this. It seems like it could be a good refill in the later parts of the game, or if you have nothing but crap in your hand, you can just discard it and draw 4. So, seems good. Let's see where we are. I think we are nearing the end of the rares. Just double checking. Yep, okay, so we'll be... Okay, like I said, we're just doing the rares today, because I don't have the energy to go through the entire set. That'll take me 4 hours. And I appreciate you folks hanging out. Vran Executioner Thane, this card's been kind of talked about. 1 and a black for a 2/2 Phyrexian Vampire. Whenever 1 or more other creatures you control die, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. This ability only triggers once each turn. It's definitely an aristocrat. It's a blood artist, but it's worse because it can only trigger once each turn. But is that trigger happening only once each turn worth it? I think it'll be relevant. I mean, I think it'll be relevant in standard because there's a lot of things that encourage your creatures to literally just frickin' die. So, will this see play? Yeah, I think so in standard. In commander, it's just something that you might, if it's like a budget aristocrat, if you wanted to throw it in, you go ahead and throw it in. It does what you want it to do. So there's never any complaints there. It's also a 2-mana 2/2. So, yeah. Hi, Elise. Getting near the end of the stream here. White Sun's Twilight. This will be X and 2 white for a sorcery. You gain X life, and you create X 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifacts. They're, like I said, they're 1/1s with Toxic 1 that can't block. And if it's 5 or more, destroy all creatures. So, we've seen effects like this before. We've seen Martial Coup. Which for the same amount of mana it can do that. But this says destroy all other creatures. It doesn't say you may destroy all other creatures. So you create a bunch of mites, blow up everything. This can kind of be a game ender, honestly, if you think about it. If your opponent already has a decent amount of poison counters on them, you play this, and then your opponent has their turn. If they can't manage to blow up your board. Also, think about this with Muldrak, who if you can give him indestructible, and then get 10 if you're paying 7 mana for this. It's part of the tokens deck, and I think it's going to be a really good card. It's a little slow, but it's a board wipe, and it's a board wipe with an upside. Like I said, it's expensive, but I think it'll see play in that tokens deck. Because worst case scenario, you're just making a handful of tokens with it rather than blowing up everything. But in worst case scenario, you can blow up everything to reset the board and make things good for you. We're actually to the last rare card. So, 2 mana for a 3/1 Phyrexian construct, Zenith Chronicler. Whenever a player casts their first multicolored spell each turn, each other player draws a card. Hey, Skag. So, 2 mana 3/1. Whenever a player casts their first multicolored spell each turn, each other player draws a card. It's really niche. So again, we see the multicolor thing pop up, so that definitely points to the idea of, yeah, we're going to be seeing more multicolored stuff happening in the near future with standard. Is this card good? No, you're not playing this in standard. You're playing this in like other formats that are just like you're playing a monocolored deck and you're punishing your opponent for playing multicolored stuff. That's the way I see this working. Maybe you can put it in a, excuse me, in a Karn the Great Creator sort of deck where you have him in there. You can maybe put one or two of these in and punish your opponent for drawing cards. But there's better things you can do to your opponent in most situations. So I think this card isn't worth it at all. So that's my opinion, though. I just realized like you guys can't actually see chat because you couldn't see chat because I had everything set up to where it was on the bottom. My bad. But that, I mean, that's gonna be it. We went through every single one of the rares and mythic rares, and this set is it's I'm not really impressed by it, to be quite honest. It's not doing anything like revolutionary, which that's fine. I mean, it's a Phyrexia set. You want it to be like familiar. We're gonna have Infect. We're gonna have Phyrexians, oils. The oil counter stuff's pretty cool. We're gonna have some artifacts. We're gonna have some oppressive stuff that does really heavy, strong stuff right off the bat. And we're gonna have a lot of cards competing with other cards that are currently in standard. It's a set I am very much looking forward to the next set more than I am looking forward to this one. But I am going to be playing Sealed on Magic Arena. That'll be on Tuesday the 7th of next week. So tune in for that. I'll be live about the same time, 6:30, 7 o'clock, playing some of that. And also, folks, I'd appreciate it if you come by tomorrow for the final episode of Season 3 of Writer's Block. We'll be having on Nathan of Reckless Attack. We're going to be finishing up the guest portion of the building we're doing with this setting. And after that, I'm going to talk to Omni about doing some game building stuff on stream. Because I know folks like watching other folks build stuff, because they get ideas, they take ideas and put it into their own stuff, inspiration, all that, yada yada. But I appreciate you folks. I'm gonna see if I can't find somebody to raid out into. I appreciate the gift subs. I appreciate the raid, Timbo. Thank you again. I don't think there's anybody currently live. Double checking real quick. Yeah, no. Okay. Well, good night, folks. I very much appreciate you. And I'll see you tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. CST with some Writer's Block. Thanks very much.